It's here, right. Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Welcome to our Ask Us Anything Instagram Live. Thank you for joining, Anna and I. So today, the plan is that we're going to answer any questions that you might have, and it can be really about anything. For those of you who spent time in our clubs, we do this a lot. We generally have a gin and tonic in our hands. Both of us are sadly recovering from coronavirus, but we have, or I have, a cup of tea. So some of you have already pre-submitted questions, which we will start with. Thank you for doing that. But we will be answering any questions that you post in real time too. So don't be shy. Do post any questions that you might have in the comments box below. I'm going to put my glasses on in order that I can read those, and we'll try our best to get through them all. And the plan is that we repeat this as often as you want us to repeat it. Right then. Let's get started. So I think the first question is for me, but AJ, feel free to chip in. And that is, what do you think makes a successful business duo? And how do you know when you found your co-founder? Okay, well, this is pretty...
Careful what you say, Deb.
Well, it's critical for us at the moment because we're not together and we're used to spending our whole lives together. So trying to learn how to do this via this or via Zoom or Teams or the systems that we're all using at the moment is tough, because one of the big things for Anna and I has been proximity. And our story, for those of you who don't know it, is that we were set up at a party just over 4 years ago by a mutual friend who said you two should be friends, and introduced us. And he called it completely correctly, because it was a moment for both of us where we bonded as you can when you meet an awesome woman over life, the universe and everything, and over the gins and tonics and chats and breakfast, lunch and dinner that followed. We talked about the things that we had in common. We've got kids the same age, we live near each other. We were very used to being women in a man's world, in very different worlds actually. And I think it's so much of this became with AllBright for us, because in our actual lives we would never have met, because Anna had a very elegant career to, you know, climbing the corporate ladder to corner office, and I had a very scrappy career building and selling my own businesses. But I think the things that we had in common were as important as our differences, and we are quite different as personality wise, as well as being very similar in terms of work ethic, in terms of background. We describe ourselves as northern grafters, and it's something that we've both got in common. I think as we've had to think about it, because we've done things like write a book and do a lot of this sort of thing, we both grew up surrounded by strong women and strong female role models, whether it was Anna as the eldest of 4 girls, or me, and where my grandmother and my mother were both entrepreneurs. And I think that shaped a lot of us and a lot of our approach to life. I think over the last sort of 2.5, nearly 3 years that we've been at this, I mean, we've been at AllBright, I think the things that really matter are, you have to pick someone whom you completely respect. And I think for me with Anna, she's just a great person, a great operator. She's got a skill set that I just don't have, in that we've got quite different approaches in terms of how we approach a problem or how we approach people. She's also got a sort of subject matter skill set that I don't have, because she was the CEO of her. So she comes from a very deep background in terms of content and people and being commercial. So all of those things are important. And I would say pick someone who's got different skills to yours, but also where your personality types are very complementary. And for Anna and I, there are some things that really matter to us, like we don't like arguing, we're not shouty, we don't, I think everybody wants to know what it is that we fight about, and the honest answer is nothing. We're not fighting people. If Anna's right about something, she's right, and we've always gone with that, and that I think has been important with teams. And I think we've both got quite a dark sense of humour. Thank God we need it at the moment. And that means that no matter how bad things are, we can always have a laugh about it. And genuinely, you will live in each other's pockets as co-founders. I spend more time with her than I do with anyone else, husbands, children, family, whatever. And I think the ability to get on, you know, when we travel, we share a room. If times are tight, we share a bed. You know, this stuff really matters, and it's really important to give that sort of thing thought, because this will become the most important relationship of your life. It's harder to get out of it than it is a divorce. So give it proper thought before you start. AJ, what have I missed?
No, I think you've covered all of it. I think it's really important to have the same broad outlook and vision, and then how you come at it can be complementary. And we like to talk about the fact that we love to do a pincer. So what we're trying to do is get to the same place, but we've got a slightly different way of doing it. But fundamentally, you spend so much time together, you've got to have a similar just similar outlook. You know, we find the same things funny, which I think is very helpful. In fact, probably one of the most important things, and people don't really talk about that, if you don't share the same sense of humor, it would actually be a bit of a nightmare. So we're super lucky, and I guess for me it was about finding a co-founder who had totally different skills to me. I mean, I hadn't founded a business before. I run lots of businesses for other people, and Debbie has been there, done that, worn the t-shirt, which has been amazing, because you come up against such sort of extreme challenges and experiences when you set up your own business. And very often when I think there's no way through this, surely, Debbie's like, yep, I've done it before, come on, we can do this. And that's just been hugely helpful for me. So I think someone who's complementary is really important.
I think also, as we reflect on it in this funny time of our lives, as all of us are, and maybe a bit more time to think about things than normal, certainly a bit more time in our own homes than normal. One of the sort of other things for us both is that we are relentlessly positive as people. Sometimes that can be a problem, because we're both very bullish. I'm probably even more bullish than Anna, and that it's like, yeah, we've got this, going to be amazing, we're going to and I think that right now what we all need to tap into is that feeling of starting afresh and anew every day that both of us have. We've both got very short memories, which means that we never remember how bad the day before was. And I think that that's an important trait to have or cultivate as an entrepreneur anyway, because you can't brood, you can't hold a grudge, you can't be dragged down by the crap that comes your way. And I think that both of us are very good foil for one another in terms of making that happen and bringing out the best in each other.
So I've got another, I'm fiddling around with the tech, which is why I keep looking this way and that way, because my computer managed to crash. So I've got the next question is for me, which is, what is the toughest decision you've ever had to make in your career?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have to make tough decisions, as do most people in business, every single day. So I find the toughest is a tough question. I think probably for me, it was making the decision to leave the corporate world and set up, co-found a business. So set off on that sort of entrepreneurial journey. That was definitely something I had to think long and hard about. And again, I think people, when they talk about starting their own business or leaving an industry, it sounds like it's very simple. Well, we decided to do this, and then we put a business plan together, and then we just went and did it. Well, in actual fact, it takes a long time. So Debbie and I, as we just explained, we were friends for a long time first, talking about kind of life, the universe and everything, and what we wanted to do next. But when we really started to figure out a plan for AllBright and what it might look like, it took many months of planning, thinking, really trying to work out how we could finance it. For me, you know, moving from being a sort of employee and knowing I had a paycheck coming in every month to going on that kind of entrepreneurial journey was a big decision, a huge decision, and one that I didn't take lightly. And I planned for a number of months, because I knew that I had a very long notice period. When I handed my notice in at Hearst, I knew I was going to have to do at least 6 months. So I thought carefully about how I could try and build up some cash, so that if it didn't go well, or in the early days of the business, I'd still be able to pay my mortgage and you know, pay the bills. And I think that's one of the things that people don't really talk about that often, that it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of thought. So that was a pretty tough decision.
Right, next one for me is, what has been the role of luck in your success? I mean, look, it's a big question as to whether you make your own luck. I think that serendipity is something that we often talk about, and when we talk about AllBright, think about what we're trying to do with that, is to make these moments of organized serendipity happen every day in our clubs, on AllBright Connect, on platforms like this when we can't all be together. Because meeting Anna was a fluke. You know, I could easily have not have gone to the party or not have been introduced to her, and I did. And I think I've had quite a lot of those moments in my life, and I'm a sort of arch rationalist, so I don't see them as being, you know, hippy dippy fate moments. But I do think that my mother always said to me about meeting a man that you were never going to meet the man of your dreams in your kitchen. And I think that applies to life, which is slightly an incongruous thing to say at the moment, but you have to get out there. You have to go to the party, you have to go to the networking event, you have to turn up. You know, and that's the Woody Allen quote, isn't it? About 80% of success is turning up, and I really think that that's true. I think the balance of that then is having the drive and the grit and the bloody mindedness to seize upon that moment and those moments, and to trust your gut, which is something you have to learn how to do as an entrepreneur, to pick the right partner, to make the right decision, to pick the business that you think you can drive through. And I think alongside that luck comes analysis, comes data, comes the numbers, comes everything, but you still have to put yourself out there. And I think that's something that women can sometimes find challenging or difficult. That's why when we've thought about what the AllBright community can do, it's to bring luck, if you like, to women's lives through ensuring that we can help them to meet the other women that they need to meet to build their sisterhood.
So next question is for both of us, which is, how do you both balance family time with running an international empire?
How's it going at the moment?
Very well, yeah. Very difficult homeschooling. I just had to ask my 7-year-old, who was trying to do a project on Anglo-Saxons, to go and sit next door, so I'm not sure I'm balancing it that well. So I guess one of the things that I think we both do is we talk a lot about our business to our kids. Our kids are similar ages, and you know, they're always asking about business, and I think probably our eldest are both quite keen on being entrepreneurs themselves. Yes. And sort of seeing that entrepreneurial journey through our eyes. And then I think just in terms of balance, so I guess it's being open, talking about it. And also both Debbie and I said, well, look, we're not those kind of the mums that are at the school gates, and, you know, we don't have time to do that because our schedules are long, and we've got business, you know, a club in LA. So we've got lots of demands on our time that makes the working day long. But what we do on a Friday is that we both say, okay, that is the afternoon we will go and pick up our kids, and no other meeting can go in there. And I think we've been pretty good at keeping that. We've probably been doing that for about a year maybe now. I think I can think of kind of 1 or 2 occasions that we haven't managed to do that, but that was our thing. We decided together that's what we wanted to do on a Friday, so to make sure that we're always the one there at the end of the week to kind of find out what happened and, you know, show face and just have a bit of time with the kids.
I think we, in our book, for those of you who haven't bought our book, you must, of course, it's this, Believe Will Become, we talk about work-life blend in this, and I think that that's something that both of us accept as a reality, which is it's very hard to talk about balance because we work super hard, and we do have a business with a club in LA, and hopefully members, part of the AllBright community, tuning in Australia and Hong Kong, and you know, it's a big ask actually, and it is a big ask for us and our families. But what I think we've always done is bring the children in with us, which means the children come into the clubs, the children listen to the calls. When I had to go to Los Angeles last summer, taking the club out there, the children came with me. So the beauty of being two female co-founders in a business that's by women, for women, about women, is we get to decide. And generally, I think the best answer to work-life balance as a question for a mum, in my experience, is be the boss. Because if I look at, my eldest is 11, and I have a 9-year-old and I've acquired a 5-year-old from my partner. But when the children were tiny, they just came with me because they could. Because I think if you're the boss, you make the rules, and you make the rules about all sorts of things that you want to do, like Friday afternoons, like children on business trips, like children in the office. We've made our AllBright clubs super child friendly. We have the small bright on a Saturday, partly because we have to be there, so they've got to be there. So it's very imperfect, and it's not to say we don't have days where it's really, really full on, but I think what we've managed to do most of the time is create a blend that works for us. Right, next question. What is the one piece of advice you find yourself repeating continuously to fellow entrepreneurs? Well, I have a sort of shtick around the 3 Gs, which is always worth repeating, and I'm repeating it to myself a lot at the moment. You're wandering around, AJ.
I know, my phone's about to run out of battery. Sorry, apologies.
It's seamless today. And it's as follows: that the first G is graft, and I think that that's remembering that it's incredibly hard work doing what we do, and doing what lots of women who are listening today, who are part of the AllBright family, do. So it's important not to underestimate that, and I think that that can get a bit lost sometimes when the press are writing about mumpreneurs or kitchen table businesses. It's all just really hard work. So first G is graft. Second G is grace. That's the name of my daughter, and I think grace under pressure is sometimes the hardest thing. It's the thing I find the hardest. It's really hard right now, right? Because it feels pretty unfair for AllBright as a business. Anna and I have had to make a lot of difficult decisions very quickly, and remembering to do that as gracefully, as graciously as you can when you're dealing with a lot of people, as we often are in people's lives. That really matters. But the final G is grit, and I think it's that grittiness, it's that need to dig deep, to ride out the roller coaster, to remind yourself you can do it. And again, in the book, what we talk about a lot is the importance of sisterhood. For those of you who've been to an AllBright club, it says in neon in the entrance hall that sisterhood works, because we know it does. We know it does with one another and with our team. So remembering that grittiness is critical. I think that the overarching, I mean, so much advice, but one of the things that I would say to my younger self that definitely gets it easier with age is don't worry so much about people liking you. You know, when you're a boss, I set up my first business at 25, which was very young. I didn't know much about much, and I employed a lot of people who were older than me, and I really, really obsessed about what they thought about me. The beauty of 20 years later is that you stop caring about that quite so much. And I think it can really hold women back, actually, that need to be liked. So it's remembering that not everybody's going to like you, but hopefully that they will respect you. And particularly in tough times like we're all facing right now, sometimes the right decision is not the easy decision, and it's not the decision that's going to win you a popularity contest. But remembering that it's important to do the right thing and quickly right now is very important.
That's a nice segue actually into this next question. When hiring a team, how do you know when you found someone who is the right fit for your business? I think building a team is probably one of the most challenging things about any business, either running a business or starting your own business. One of the things that Debbie and I had to do was to build a team of people very quickly. And at first, we were hiring people at such a pace, I think it's fair to say that we got it wrong quite a few times. And yeah. We're very, very optimistic, both of us, and we're also both quite impatient people. So we can kind of meet people and think, well, they seem nice, they seem great, they say they can do the job. Right, they're hired. And we had a few early sort of mistakes with quite senior hires. And so what we decided to do was to go away and sort of spend a day really, really thinking about what the type of people that we wanted to work with and the type of people who could deliver the sort of business that we were that we had set up. And we did take quite a lot of thought, and we sort of whiteboarded. So, you know, we wrote loads and loads of different things and different sort of qualities that we admired and that we kept coming back to. And we ended up with about kind of 20 different words, and we had to hone it right down. And what we honed it down to was three things. And one was execution, one was flair, and one was sisterhood works. And what we meant by that was execution was really about, well, what drives us mad? What drives us mad is that people who say that they are going to do something and then they don't do it. So they just don't complete the work. And we realized that, you know, we're building a business very quickly and everything needed to be executed well. Everything we did and everything that our teams did. So execution was number one. The second thing was flair. And that was because we really believe that every time you do something, you should try and do it a little bit better. You should try and bring some creativity to the party and think differently about it, whether you're a barista or you're a marketer or you're in sales or whatever it is you're doing. You should always try and make it a little bit better. And then the third thing, which was extremely important to us, was really the whole purpose of the business is sisterhood works. And so really what this was about, it doesn't matter if you're a man, if you're a woman, whatever age or stage you're in your career, are you a believer? So do you believe in the mission and do you live those values? So making sure that the way that you treat your colleagues, the way that you treat our customers, the way that you treat our suppliers and all of our stakeholders has to be through the lens of sisterhood works. And you have to really believe in equality and believe in the mission. And actually after that, it made hiring much easier for us and quicker, and it meant that also the people, our managers and our HR team, could hire to those three values. So I think it's worth spending the time really thinking about what are those values that matter to you, matter to your company, whether it's your own company or you're running a company for somebody else, and really make sure that you hire to those values.
I think the other thing I would add to that is that we still get it wrong all the time. And we generally get it wrong when we're hiring in a hurry. And in my experience of what it's like to grow a startup or scale up business where you're raising capital, generally the dance is that you go, okay, put together an investment case for potential investors that tells a growth story, and it says if we do these things in this way, then the business will grow like this, and you're able to convince people that that's the case, and they invest in the business, you have more capital to spend, and then you realize at that moment that you sold the dream, if you like, that requires a lot of people to deliver it, and you don't currently employ any of those people because you haven't had the money. And that happens every single time you're growing a business, and then there's a frenzy to find those people really quickly in order that you stand a chance of hitting the numbers. And generally 50% of the people that you hire are completely the wrong fit. And I think for the entrepreneurs listening to this, it isn't for everybody, but not everybody knows that until they've tried it. And we experience something a lot, which we call organ donor rejection, which basically means when somebody joins and within 48 hours, it is absolutely clear that they are wrong for us and we are wrong for them. And the we are wrong for them bit is as important as them being wrong for us. Sometimes it's just not the right fit. It's a very particular thing doing what we do. You need to get an absolute adrenaline rush from living in the grey. In other words, from not knowing what's going to happen in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, or from being asked to change and pivot all the time. And for some people, that's just absolutely their idea of hell. Often people that have come from a bigger organization, you know, talking about luck, one of the great lucky moments for both of us is that Anna's really good at this, because actually her background prior to coming in did entrepreneurial things, but wasn't the same as this stop start. It's like this, and then we've got to change, it's like that. And she's brilliant at that, but it is actually often the case that someone who has the stellar CV is not. So I don't know that we've definitely locked in our values and we remember the triangle, but sometimes it's still the case that we call it wrong, or we're in a rush and we make bad decisions.
Yeah, try and remember to interview people 3 times. We don't.
Yes, everyone we've ever interviewed twice has been wrong. 3 times.
Or sometimes once.
Right, I'm going to look at some of the questions that we're getting here. How have you navigated working environments where women are not in the driving seat without getting frustrated? I'm going to hand over to Anna on this one, because she is the master of soft power.
That's been most of my career, particularly in my last role. So I was the CEO in the publishing industry, and I was the only female CEO at that time in a publishing company of any size. So I guess I'm very used to having to navigate all male boardrooms and all male meetings, quite frankly. So how did I navigate it? I guess there's something we talk about quite a lot, about this thing around authentic leadership. So people say to me, you know, can you be authentic to yourself when you are working in a very, very male environment? And I think you can, absolutely, but I think one of the things you need to consider is sometimes you've got to know when to play the game. And what I mean by that is that quite often a lot of the senior women that I see don't necessarily have the language, so they are the ones that are a little bit more risk averse, that they come to the meetings and they don't necessarily want to be the people who are speaking first, or giving their opinions, or disagreeing with people in those meetings. And so I think you have to consider being authentic to yourself, very, very important. So make sure that you think about your values and who you are as a leader, and actually use the fact that you're the odd one out around the table to your advantage. So I have been in meetings where, you know, and it's a sort of trite thing that many people have said, but there's an assumption that, oh, in she comes, she's going to pour the tea, or in fact, is she one of the PAs? And so I think, you know, using the fact that you are in the minority to your advantage, people will notice you're there. So actually, to get your point across, that can be extremely helpful. So I think that's worth considering. And then it's worth considering, when are the moments when you are effectively playing the man's game, and that is using their techniques, which are, you know, getting your point of view across quite quickly in a meeting. Don't hold back. If you've got something to say it. Not to feel that if you've got something to say that disagrees with the person around the table, you know, do it, because, you know, I have consistently seen men do that. You know, they'll always be the ones that speak up first, and they're the ones that will say, I don't agree with you, this is what we actually should be doing. So I think in those kind of set piece boardroom situations, it's important to think about how you can get your point across. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it's something that you need to practice, and that you need to keep thinking about. But also, you know, the fact that you stand out can be an advantage rather than a disadvantage.
I think there's also a point which we are very live to around sisterhood, in that one of the things that you can do is make sure that you are supporting the other woman or women around the table. And Anna and I do that quite a lot. So if one of us says something, then the other one will ensure that when we're making our comments, we're reflecting, well, as Anna just said, or Anna made a good point there, or, you know, and language is a very powerful thing. And you know, that was very much a Obama administration point. Hillary Clinton and others used to do that, bring women into the conversation. So sometimes you're the only woman in the room. And I was very, very used to that as a tech entrepreneur, pitching for capital, and as a female CEO running a business where the management team were men. But it is more typically the case now that there is one other woman. Sometimes there's more, but sometimes there's only one. And I think you get very used to that rhythm of being a female double act, which is still incredibly rare. And the data last year from British Business Bank showed that a penny in the pound goes to back a business co-founded by 2 women. So it is unusual, but I think it's because it's unusual that you can really work that situation to be mutually supportive of one another. And also another point that we make in the book, we make it a lot in the book, is practice. So we always say that our best off-the-cuff remarks are very well rehearsed. We game everything from delivery to dresses. And before any meeting, practice. The 2 of us will say, right, we think it's going to go like this. I'll take this. You take. I mean, the more you get to know each other, the more natural that is, because there are obvious things that I would cover and Anna would cover. But from an emotional perspective or from a psychological perspective, we really do work out how we're going to pincer, how we're going to approach a situation, how we're going to approach these men. Because let's be honest, we've got a male board, we've got male investors, and we are a female double act. So practice, practice, practice. Practice with your sisterhood, practice with your co-founder, practice with your actual sisters, practice with your mates, but do it. There's no shame in doing it.
And also, there are men around the table who will support you as well. So if you're in that sort of boardroom environment, it's not just women speaking up for each other. It's also, getting those feminist men to speak up and not to just be sort of mansplaining on our behalf.
Yeah, indeed. Right. What do we have next? Motivation. This is for both of us, I think, AJ. What motivates us, and has that changed over the years?
Should I go first?
Go on.
So I guess what motivates me massively now is running my own business. I can honestly say that I have never had that dread on a Sunday night that you sometimes get, because every day is a new challenge and we're in charge of our own destiny. So that has been hugely motivating to me. I know I was very motivated when I was working in the corporate world, but sometimes you get kind of curveballs coming at you which had absolutely nothing to do with the business, and that could be extremely stressful. I mean, we have extremely stressful things happening all the time in the business we're running ourselves, but it's not quite the same kind of level of stress. And then I guess the other thing is that we've now got a business that's all about women. So, my sort of passion in life since I was tiny has been, the sisterhood and kind of empowering women and girls. And now, being in a business that's about a community of kick-ass women and seeing them either in person when we're allowed out or digitally as we're doing now is extremely motivating and very galvanizing. And when we're in the clubs, people very often stop me when I'm wandering around and tell me a story about somebody that they have met through the AllBright community that they have really bonded with. Now, that might be in a work capacity, so people who've co-founded businesses together, who have funded each other's businesses, or it might be that they've just, come back from a holiday together and it's somebody that they've met. And what Debbie and I wanted to do with AllBright was to set up something that had organized serendipity at its heart, because our lives changed so much when we met through a serendipitous moment. But we thought, what, maybe we can actually create a business that has organized serendipity at its heart. And that's what we've done. And so it's really, really exciting and very motivating to see that happening every day.
I guess the flip of that is it's important to be real. And sometimes you're motivated by a mega sense of screw you. And that is quite a big part of what does it for us on the occasion. And I think that's okay. Yes, it's about building a community, and it's about connections and changing things for work, of course. But there are a couple of other things that it's important to say. The first is there are a lot of people out there, men and women, who don't necessarily believe in what we're doing. And so it is for every business, believe me. The number of people that will tell you it's never going to work, or it isn't working, or they're rolling, you know, channel that, like channel the dark. You know, we talk about that quite a lot. You know, it's okay to feel angry and fed up and frustrated and like nobody's listening, and just channel it, right? So take the dark and use the dark is sort of number one. And number two is money. Like, it's okay to say, I want to be rich. I want to be able to go on nice holidays and own a nice house and educate my children if that's what I want, or whatever. It's a given that that's how men feel, and women do not talk about it. And we do. And we say, money's important. We all need it. Anna will say, if you are working in a corporate and you want to start your own business, make sure you've got the money to be able to afford to do it. And I will say it's really important that women drive their businesses towards a big valuation and an exit so that they can redeploy their capital in backing other women, or whatever it is, whatever your version of that is. But don't be afraid of saying, I want money. And sometimes I feel so pissed off, I want to show the people around me, or the people I feel wrong me, or the person, you know, that's okay. So it's a bit of a combination of light and dark, I would say.
So there's another question here. Have either of us had a mentor or a coach early on in our career? I have had a coach a couple of times, actually, at specific sort of crossroads in my career when I've been thinking about what I wanted to do next, or I've been moving to a new role or a new company. Now, one particular coach I had was really influential to me, and one thing stuck with me that I think is worth repeating. And he said to me, if you don't make any time for yourself as your own project, so you're constantly running around doing everything for everybody else, for your family, for your friends, for your colleagues, for your bosses, if you don't make yourself one of those projects, nothing will change. So you will continue to do the same thing, you'll be on the same sort of trajectory, and you'll have the same frustrations. And he basically encouraged me to think about a time for myself every week as Project Me, which we now call Project You through the AllBright Academy, to really think about myself, my career, and what motivated me and what I wanted to do in a structured way. So I was already in quite a sort of senior role when I had this particular coach, but I used to have a Thursday breakfast, and I would stick it in my diary and call it whatever, I can't remember, but it was a time that nothing else could be booked in, and I had sort of an hour and a half, couple of hours to really think about what I wanted to do, and to think about what I was good at, what I was weaker at, and what were the things that would actually get me out of bed in the morning. And it was hugely useful, very simple piece of advice, but something that we really encourage people to do. We've got the AllBright Academy. The first module is actually called Project You, and it's going through that kind of structured thinking, and I just can't recommend it enough.
I've never done or had anything like that, other than the one occasion that Anna and I last year, when we were feeling a bit stuck, took ourselves out together and had a coaching session, which when we came out with the triangle, and we should really do it again, right? Because it's that moment for me of trying to take yourself out of your own head and simplify things, because all businesses are complex. Ours is really quite complex because you've got buildings, and you have to be a property developer, and F&B, and community, and tech, and media, and content. And I think that ability of somebody with a completely external perspective to reflect on you, your business, and how you operate and run it together was really useful. So we need to do it again.
Yeah.
Right. What is the single hardest thing about running a business?
People. It's definitely the hardest thing, because the more people, the more complex the business is to manage in terms of communication and interpretation. So, you know, the last business that I ran, I had 1,000 people, and you are extremely reliant on your management team understanding what the vision is for the business and translating that in a way throughout the company that you get the business outcomes that you've actually that you require. It's also about making sure that people feel they really understand the values, that they live the values of the company. And we mentioned it earlier, but that are not just paying lip service to it, but that are really sort of living those values with each other as well. But it's, when it works, it's amazing. And, you know, at the moment we have got, Debbie and I have got a fantastic, like unbelievable senior leadership team, and it's taken us the best part of, well, 2 years really to kind of get that that team bedded in. And we don't take it for granted now. I mean, we really look around the table and just go, wow, we're lucky, but it has taken us a long time to get that right.
Right. I think that may be it. We are happy to do this as often as anybody wants at the moment. We know that we're living in interesting times, but we are here. So ask us anything and we will be back. Do make sure that you tune in on Instagram Live tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Anna is going to be in conversation with Yvette Anquet MBE discussing all things work-life balance, which I know was a question earlier. Please do get in touch with any feedback or suggest any other themes that you would like to see. If you miss any of our events, please check out IGTV and join our AllBright Connect platform. It's free and we can't push it enough, as well as buying our book, which is not free, but you should do that anyway. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm now going to try and turn this off while saving what we've just done. So excuse me a second whilst I fiddle around and we will be back again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.